The ballroom doors opened in perfect unison. Crystal chandeliers scattered warm light across marble floors and silk gowns. Waiters moved in smooth lines, white gloves, silver trays, faces trained to show nothing. A string quartet played softly, just loud enough to sound expensive, just quiet enough to let wealth talk over it. The Harrington Foundation Gala was not a party, it was a performance. Old money loved charity because it could call itself good without changing. Every table was dressed in ivory linen. Every centerpiece was sculpted flowers and fragile glass. Every smile in the room had been practiced. And then Amara Blake walked in. She came alone. No entourage, no flash, no announcement. Her red gown cut through the ballroom like a clean line drawn across a painting. Not glittery, not loud, just unmistakable. Her shoulders were relaxed. Her chin was level. Her eyes were steady. She paused for half a second, like she was reading the room, and the room reacted not with cheers, with assessment. A man in a tuxedo near the bar tilted his head and leaned toward his wife. "Do we know her?" His wife glanced once, lips tightening. "I don't recognize her." A younger woman, pale gown, champagne in hand, smirked into her glass. "Maybe she's staff. They've been rushing around all night." Another voice, sharper, louder than it needed to be, said, "No, look at the dress. She'll be someone's +1. Then a different woman, the kind who smiled without warmth, added, "Or maybe the guest list is getting generous." The last word landed with a soft sting. Amara heard it. She did not turn her head. She crossed the ballroom with unhurried steps, heels quiet on marble, and walked straight to the reception desk near the entrance. A reception attendant in a sleek black blazer looked up and smiled automatically. Then her smile shifted, a flicker of uncertainty, a flicker of judgment. "Good evening," the attendant said. "May I see your invitation?" Amara placed her invitation down gently. The attendant glanced at it, then at Amara, then back to the tablet screen. Her fingers began tapping. The tapping went on too long. The kind of tapping that says, "Your name should not exist here." "I'm sorry," the attendant said. Voice polite, eyes not quite polite. "I'm not seeing your name." Amara's voice stayed calm. "Please check again." The attendant's eyes flicked up, then down again. "Are you with catering?" she asked. The words were coated in sugar, but the meaning underneath was hard. Amara held her gaze. "No." The attendant tried again, like she could find a box where Amara would make sense to her. "Logistics, event staff." Amara's jaw tightened slightly. "I'm a guest." The attendant hesitated, then smiled again, smaller now. "This is a private fundraiser," she said, as if Amara had wandered in off the street. Behind Amara, a couple approached the desk, a white man and woman in their 50s. They didn't slow down. The man nodded at the attendant like he owned the air. "Julian's table," he said casually. The attendant didn't ask for an invitation. She didn't look at the screen. She didn't ask who they were. She smiled brightly and waved them. Through Amara noticed. She noticed everything. The attendant returned her attention to Amara with the faint impatience of someone who felt inconvenienced by her existence. "I'll need to verify your status," she said. Amara inhaled slowly, controlled. "I'm a donor," Amara said. The attendant laughed. It slipped out before she could stop it. A quick sound of disbelief. Then she covered it with a cough. "I'm sorry," the attendant said, as if the apology erased the laughter. I'll need to confirm. Could you step aside for a moment?" It was said politely, but the message underneath was clear. "Move, wait, know your place." Amara stepped aside, not because she was unsure, because she was watching across the ballroom. Sir Julian Harrington stood near the stage, champagne glass in hand, surveying the room like a landlord, inspecting property. Sir Julian was late 50s, silver hair, sharp jaw, the type of man whose suit looked tailored for his ego. Beside him stood Lady Celeste Harrington, early 50s, impeccable diamond necklace resting on her collarbones like a crown. She held her glass lightly, fingers elegant, smile thin. Julian watched the reception desk with quiet amusement. Celeste followed his gaze. "She doesn't fit the room," Celeste murmured. Julian smirked. "She'll learn." Celeste tilted her head. "Should we intervene?" Julian's smile widened. "No. Let's see how she behaves when she's told no." Amara stood at the edge of the ballroom, hands folded loosely, letting the music wash over her while people moved around her like she was. Furniture servers passed without offering her anything. Guests brushed by, shoulders grazing her, no apology. A man looked directly at her and said, "Excuse me," with the tone people use when they mean the opposite. A woman near her whispered to her friend, "It's always the same. They turn up bold." Amara exhaled slowly. She had been in rooms like this before. Boardrooms, where men assumed she was there to take notes. Courtrooms, where opposing counsels spoke over for fundraisers, where she was thanked for representation instead of intelligence. Tonight was familiar, but tonight she had come prepared. Micro twist 1 was already in place, on her wrist, half hidden by the angle of her arm. She wore a small silver bracelet. Not flashy, not expensive looking, just clean. Most people would assume it was ordinary, but it wasn't ordinary. It was a trustee insignia. Only a handful of people in the foundation had one. Amara wore it deliberately, not to show off, to test something. Would anyone look closely enough to see her, or would they see only what they wanted to see? From the corner of her eye, Amara watched the reception attendant whisper to another staff member, then glance toward Celeste. Celeste didn't walk over. She didn't ask questions. She simply lifted her chin slightly, like a signal. The reception attendant nodded. Then the attendant walked back to Amara with a tight smile. "I'm still not seeing your name," she said. "Perhaps you're on the staff list." "Let me check that." Amara's eyes stayed steady. "I'm not staff," Amara said again. The attendant's smile tightened. "I'll need you to wait by the side," she said, gesturing toward a space near a service corridor. "We can't hold up the desk." Amara turned her head slightly, watching guests walk in behind her, unchallenged, laughing. The attendant didn't seem to notice the hypocrisy, or she did, and she didn't care. Amara stepped to the side. A woman in a pale gown passed by and muttered, "They're letting anyone cosplay wealth now." Her friend laughed. "Maybe she got lucky," the friend said. "Some people love a charity case." Amara's fingers curled slightly, then relaxed. She refused to shrink. She refused to perform anger for their entertainment. She stood still. The orchestra paused. The room shifted as the lights dimmed slightly. The opening speech was beginning. Sir Julian Harrington stepped onto the stage. Thunderous applause. Not because he had earned it, because the room had agreed he deserved it. "Ladies and gentlemen," Julian began warmly, "thank you for joining us in celebrating tradition, excellence, and the future we protect. Together." Smiles and nods. Glasses raised. Julian spoke about heritage. He spoke about standards. He spoke about preserving culture and values. Words that sounded noble until you noticed who they excluded. Micro twist 3 sat inside his speech, hidden in plain sight. Amara had seen the draft, not tonight, earlier, through the foundation's compliance folder. She had read his words before he ever said them out loud, and the irony was sharp, because the programs he was praising, the scholarships, the legal support, the community work, had been funded mostly by one donor. A donor Julian had never bothered to meet because the donor had asked to remain anonymous, because the donor did not want applause. Amara listened from the edge of the room as Julian continued. "Tonight," he said, "we honor those who understand that giving is responsibility." Amara almost smiled. "Responsibility." He said it like it belonged only to the people at the top. Speech ended with applause that shook the chandeliers. The auction began immediately. After. Paintings. JEWELLERY. Private. Dinners. A weekend at an estate. Bids flew like confetti. 10,000. 50,000. 100,000. A woman laughed as she raised her paddle again, like the number was a joke. Applause chased every bid. Amara stood still and watched wealth act like it was normal. Then the auctioneer raised his hand, and now he said, voice bright, "We come to our principal patron." The room quieted. "This individual," he continued, "has funded over half of tonight's initiatives, from scholarships to legal support." Julian sat straighter. Celeste adjusted her necklace. The auctioneer glanced down at his card. "We are honored to recognize," he said clearly, "Miss Amara Blake." The ballroom went silent. Not polite silence, shock silence. Heads turned, eyes widened. People stared openly now, as if Amara had transformed in front of them. Amara stepped forward. Her heels echoed across the marble floor. Each step measured dots, or Julian's smile collapsed. Slowly, Celeste's hand tightened on her glass. Amara reached the stage and took the microphone. She didn't rush. She didn't smile to soften her presence. "Good evening," she said calmly. The room held its breath. "I arrived earlier this evening," Amara continued, "and I had the privilege of experiencing your welcome." A ripple of murmurs. "I was asked if I was catering." Gasps moved through the room. The reception attendant's face went pale. "I was told my name wasn't on the list," Amara said. "I watched people walk in without checks while I was asked to step aside." Julian stood abruptly. "This is not the time," he snapped. Amara lifted a hand. "Let me finish," she said, voice steady, not loud. "Just final." The room quieted again. "This foundation speaks often about excellence," Amara continued, "but excellence without dignity is just decoration." Silence pressed harder. Micro-twist to landed next, clean and undeniable. "Earlier today," Amara said, "my name was removed from the seating plan." The room murmured. "That was not a glitch," she added. "It was a manual change." Celeste's eyes narrowed. Julian's jaw tightened. "The audit trail records. Who authorized it?" Amara said. "And when?" A few trustees shifted uncomfortably. One man in the front row pulled out his phone, as if he could undo what was happening by looking busy. Then Amara delivered the line that made the room truly pay attention. "I am not only a donor," she said. "I am a trustee, and I oversee compliance and governance." Celeste's face drained of color. Julian's eyes flicked fast, calculating. Micro-twist 1 returned quietly. Amara lifted her wrist slightly. "This bracelet," she said softly, "has been on my wrist all night." She let the silence stretch. "It didn't help," she said, "because you did not look closely enough to see me as I am. You only saw what you assumed." The shame in the room was not loud. It moved in tiny shifts. A woman lowered her gaze. A man cleared his throat. A couple stopped smiling. Amara continued, "I did not come here to embarrass anyone," she said. Julian scoffed under his breath. "Came to correct a system," Amara said, "because systems survive when good people stay quiet." Micro-twist 5 arrived like a clean blade. "The board vote already happened," Amara said calmly. 30 minutes ago." Silence hit the room again. "The decision was unanimous," she continued. "Immediate governance review, sponsor confidence assessment, leadership restructuring." Julian froze. Celeste's glass trembled slightly. Amara scanned the audience. "You didn't know," she said, "because you assumed I was powerless the moment you saw me." Micro-twist 4 was already waiting. The applause did not come immediately. There was a long pause, a deep, uncomfortable silence, where people waited to see what the powerful would do next, whether it was safe to support her, whether clapping would cost them social comfort. Amara stood still, unshaken, not begging for approval. Then one black man near the middle rose to his feet. Quietly. Then a black woman beside him stood, too. Then another. Then another. Black guests rose first. Not as a performance, as a message. The applause began there, among them. Then it spread outward like a wave, forcing the room to choose. Some clapped with relief. Some clapped reluctantly. Some clapped because they did not want to be seen not clapping. Julian remained seated. Celeste stared ahead, smile gone. Amara stepped away from the podium. She had said enough. As she walked off stage, a trustee approached quickly, a tall white man with a stiff smile. "Ms. Blake," he said, "perhaps we can discuss this privately." Amara stopped. "Of course," she said. "I'll be happy to discuss it with the board." The trustee swallowed. It was, of course, the board. Amara's eyes stayed steady. "But before that," she said softly, "I'd like to finish experiencing the evening you created." She walked calmly back into the crowd. Now the ballroom felt different. People, who had ignored her earlier, suddenly smiled too widely. "Oh, Ms. Blake," a woman said, voice too bright. "I had no idea. We must have you at our table." Amara's face remained neutral. "You had every idea," Amara said quietly. "You just didn't think I would matter." The woman's smile collapsed. Amara moved past her. At the bar, a man muttered, "This is ridiculous. She's turning a charity gala into politics." Amara heard him and turned slightly. "It only feels like politics," she said, "when you are used to being comfortable." The man blinked. Stunned, she replied. Amara walked on. Celeste approached her next, perfect smile back in place, holding a glass as if it could protect her. "Amara," Celeste said warmly, using her first name like they were close. "We've clearly had a misunderstanding." Amara looked at her. Celeste leaned in slightly, voice lowered. False intimacy. "You're an intelligent woman. You understand. Perception. We can handle this discreetly." Amara's voice stayed calm. "Discreetly is how it survives," she said. Celeste's smile tightened. "What do you want?" Celeste asked, the warmth gone. Amara tilted her head slightly. "I want a room like this," she said, "to stop mistaking black excellence for an intrusion." Celeste's eyes flashed. "You're enjoying humiliating us," Celeste whispered. Amara shook her head. "No," she said, "I'm enjoying the truth, finally being visible." Across the ballroom, Julian stood with two trustees, speaking sharply, trying to regain control. Amara watched him. Then a new detail arrived, small but heavy. A young server walked up to Amara and slipped a folded card into her hand. No words, just a glance that said, "I saw it too." Amara opened the card. Slowly, it was a printed seating. Plan snippet. Her name was on it originally, then crossed out in pen, and beside it, a small note. Approved by C.H. Celeste Harrington. Amara's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. Now, it wasn't just the system, it was personal. Amara slipped the card into her purse. She turned and walked toward a small cluster of black guests, gathered near the far side of the ballroom. They were watching her with something that looked like pride and relief and disbelief. All mixed together, a younger black man, early 20s, tux slightly too big, looked at her like she couldn't be real. He said quietly, "They treated you like that too?" Amara nodded. He swallowed. "I thought it was just me." Amara's face softened slightly. "It's never just you," she said. A black woman beside him, late 50s maybe, said, "Thank you for saying it out loud." Amara nodded. "I said it because you deserve to hear it," she replied. "Mid-story, be honest. If you were in that room tonight and you saw someone being treated like they didn't belong, would you speak up in the moment or stay quiet and tell yourself it's not your business? Comment. It. Amara turned back toward the stage. The auctioneer had tried to move on, desperate to keep the night normal, but normal was gone. The room couldn't pretend anymore. Julian took the microphone again, smiles strained. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice tight, "let's return to the purpose of this evening." Amara watched him. Then she walked, calm, back toward the stage. The auctioneer's face tightened with panic. Julian's eyes burned with anger. Amara stepped up without asking permission. Julian whispered into the mic, "This is enough." Amara leaned closer, voice soft but clear. "No," she said. "This is the part where you finally listen." She took the microphone with a gentle hand, not grabbing, not aggressive. The room fell silent again. "I want to be clear," Amara said. "I did not come here to destroy a foundation." Julian's face loosened for half a second, relief flickering. "I came here to save it," Amara continued, "from itself." That line hit differently. "Not revenge, correction, double quotes. The Harrington Foundation can do real good," Amara said, "but not while it treats human dignity as optional." She paused. "I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next," she said. "The board will convene in the side room within the next 10 minutes. An independent reviewer will take statements from staff and attendees. All sponsors will be briefed on the governance review. And most importantly," Amara said, scanning the room, "every member of staff who witnessed discriminatory treatment tonight will be protected from retaliation." A hush moved through the staff along the edges, because that mattered. That was redemption, she continued. "If you work here, and you have been told to keep quiet, you do not have to keep quiet anymore." Julian snapped. "You can't dictate. In my ballroom." Amara turned her head slightly, eyes steady. "You don't own dignity," she said, "and you don't own truth." Julian's face flushed. Celeste's hand trembled around her glass. Amara handed the microphone back to the auctioneer and stepped down. Consequences began landing quietly. Trustees started whispering. Then, separating from Julian, a sponsor stepped out to make a call. A woman in pearls moved her chair away from Celeste. The room that had worshipped the Harrington name began. Stepping away from it, Julian chased a trustee, voice low and angry. "This is ridiculous," Julian hissed. "We built this," the trustee replied, barely audible. "You built a stage." She exposed the foundation. Celeste approached one of her friends, smile tight. Her friend stepped back. That small social rejection hit Celeste harder than any speech, because Celeste lived for belonging, and now she was being denied it in the side room. The board gathered. Long table, bottled water, quiet tension. Amara entered calmly, red dress catching the warm light. The trustees sat, faces tight. Julian stood at the head, furious. Celeste sat beside him, eyes sharp, trying to regain control. A senior trustee, an older black man with a calm face, spoke first. "Ms. Blake," he said. "Thank you," Julian snapped. "Thank you. She humiliated us." The trustee turned to Julian. "No," he said. "You humiliated yourselves." Silence. The trustee continued. "We have been receiving concerns for years. Donor behaviour, staff complaints, exclusion practices." Celeste scoffed. "People are too sensitive." The trustee's eyes hardened. "People are too tired," he said. Amara listened. She didn't interrupt. Then another twist landed, inside the boardroom. The senior trustee pulled out a letter. "We received this today," he said, "from a major sponsor." Julian frowned. "What sponsor?" The trustee looked him in the eye. "Your lender," he said. Julian stiffened. The trustee continued. "They included a conduct clause. They have concerns about reputational risk." Julian's mouth opened, then closed. Amara looked at Julian. "Now you understand," she said softly, "what it feels like to be judged by what someone assumes about you." Julian whispered, "This is sabotage." Amara shook her head. "This is consequence," she replied. The board voted again, formally, in front of Julian. Motion 1, temporary removal of Julian as public spokesperson, pending review. Motion 2, suspension of Celeste's authority over guest lists and staffing. Motion 3, immediate policy restructuring and external oversight. Julian's face remained rigid. Celeste's eyes flashed with rage. Then, fear. The vote passed. Unanimous. Julian sat down slowly, like gravity had doubled. Celeste stared at the table, hands trembling. Amara did not smile. She didn't need to when the meeting ended. Amara returned to the ballroom. The energy had changed. The night was no longer glittering. It was honest. Near the exit, a young black woman approached Amara. "Eyes wet. She said. "I almost left earlier. When they treated you like that." Amara nodded. The young woman continued. "I'm here on a scholarship. I kept thinking I should be grateful, like I had to accept anything." Amara's voice softened. "Gratitude does not require humiliation," she said. The young woman inhaled shakily. Amara placed a hand lightly on her arm. "You belong," Amara said, "not because they invited you, because you are worthy." The young woman nodded, tears falling. That was the redemption. Not a dramatic hug, not shouting. A truth spoken directly to someone who needed it. At the far end of the ballroom, Julian stood alone, watching people avoid him. Celeste walked past him, face tight. She whispered, "You let her do this." Julian looked hollow. "No," he said quietly, "we did." Celeste's eyes flashed. Julian looked down. "We thought power meant we could treat people however we wanted, and still be respected," he said. Celeste swallowed, realizing the room was listening. Julian's voice cracked slightly, not with regret for Amara, but with fear for himself. "And we were wrong." Amara heard him. She didn't respond. She didn't need his regret to validate her. The ballroom began to empty. Staff cleared. Tables, chandeliers dimmed. The room that had felt untouchable now felt like a place forced to look in a mirror. As Amara reached the entrance, the reception attendant appeared, eyes down, voice trembling. "Ms. Blake," she said, "I'm sorry." Amara looked at her. The attendant continued, "I shouldn't have laughed. I shouldn't have assumed." Amara held her gaze. "Why did you?" Amara asked. Not cruelly, just clearly. The attendant swallowed. "Because everyone else does," she whispered, "and I didn't want to be the only one who didn't." Amara nodded slowly. "That's how it spreads," Amara said. "Not through monsters. Through fear of standing alone." The attendant's eyes filled with tears. Amara softened her tone. "Next time," she said, "stand alone, anyway." Amara turned to leave before stepping out. She looked back once at the ballroom. The lights, the tables, the people who clapped late, the people who clapped first. Then she faced forward and walked out. .com. Closing fade. Power is not loud. Real power does not need permission. Dignity does not come from being recognized by people who would have ignored you 5 minutes earlier. It comes from knowing who you are, even when the room insists you are nothing. That night, the foundation did not collapse. It changed. And sometimes change is the best justice because it means the next person who walks through those doors will be treated like a human before they are treated like a name. Lesson. If people only respect you once, they know your title, your bank balance, or your connections. Then they never respected you at all. And if you are the one watching someone be disrespected, remember this. Silence is not neutral. Silence is a vote and engagement. If you were in that ballroom tonight, would you have stood when the truth was revealed, or waited until it was safe? Tell me honestly in the comments. And if this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe. Because dignity matters, fairness matters, and real accountability always catches up.